Pakistani craftsmen melt scrap iron and cast it to produce cost-effective hydraulic brake cylinders. Using simple lathe processing, they produce sturdy and durable brake cylinders. The pile of truck scrap parts you see here is their main source of material. The craftsmen first break the scrap parts into small pieces to facilitate melting. This speeds up the melting process and ensures better heating in the furnace due to the smaller size. While melting scrap iron into molten iron, the craftsmen create a mold for the brake cylinder. With the finished mold inside, they fill the sandboxes with mixed sand. The sand must be tightly compacted to prevent hollow cavities that might cause cracking. Since the molds usually consist of 2 layers, the second layer of the sandbox is fixed to create the mold's base after turning them over. After the craftsmen skillfully and quickly fill the molds, they remove the internal mold. The gap between the upper and lower molds is where the molten iron will be poured. Next, the molds are heated to prevent the damp sand from cracking or collapsing. Since the brake cylinder is hollow inside, a sand core maintains the shape and prevents the final product from being solid. After the craftsmen had made several molds, the scrap iron in the furnace was already molten. To ensure the molten iron is pure, the craftsmen skim off any impurities floating on the surface, preventing them from affecting the final product quality. After dividing the molten iron into smaller containers, they quickly pour it into the molds. Although one mold can produce 2 brake cylinders, the amount of molten iron required is not much. After pouring, it takes 30 seconds for the iron to set before separating it from the sandbox. Once the molds are removed, the brake cylinders are extremely hot and must cool for 24 hours. However, they still do not meet usage requirements at this stage. The first step is to remove the side burrs with a lathe tool, ensuring the edges are even. The internal wall of the brake cylinder must be precisely machined to avoid affecting the piston's movement. After the quick operation by the craftsman, the internal diameter is compared to ensure it hasn't been overprocessed. With no sand holes in the internal wall, a groove is cut to fit the dust cover securely. As the contact surface must be smooth and flat and lack professional equipment, they use a self-made jig to secure the cylinder on the lathe, moving the tool holder to achieve a smooth finish. A simple honing process is required to bring the internal wall to the standard of an engine cylinder liner. Even though their equipment is semi-automated, the craftsman's hand speed is quick, and it takes just 1 minute to complete the honing. Although the brake cylinder is now processed, it undergoes a first visual inspection to prevent defects. Since the surface might rust, products that pass the initial inspection are sprayed with anti-rust paint to make the brake cylinder more aesthetically pleasing and high-end. The ends are sealed with rubber plugs to ensure the paint does not affect later assembly. Once the paint dries, the craftsmen install the necessary pistons inside, followed by return springs, and conduct a simple test. Although they lack airtightness testing equipment, a simple blow test can detect leaks. This completes the production of hydraulic brake cylinders made from scrap iron. What do you think of the Pakistani craftsman's skills?